Hey guys, we're doing our week 2 NFL picks against the spread video. Look, I don't really want to go into the introductions because we had some horrible news today with the political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But yeah, I think this could be a good distraction here. You can always you always need that. So I think that I love a lot of games this week for the week 2 NFL slate. I'm looking forward to talking to Andy, our guest for tonight, Andy Iskoe, who runs thelogicalapproach.com. Andy, how's it going? How's your week 1? I know you survived with the Broncos and Survivor, but how are your picks against the spread?
Yeah, I got to run for my money with the Broncos, who were surprisingly tested a bit more than a lot of folks thought by Tennessee. Not that the Titans, they covered the 8.5 and all that, but I thought that there might have. I did play the under in the game, which I really liked, but I wasn't sure I would have. Said there'd be only 32 points scored in that game, but it was a so-so week overall. There were some surprises, there were some pleasant surprises, and some disappointments, like the Bears on Monday night. I should have played the first half instead of the full game, but nonetheless, that'll happen. And I was very impressed with Minnesota. Those are two teams that I looked. I liked the situation Monday night for the Bears with the new coach and everything, and the improved roster. But I have to say, I was very, very impressed with the Vikings, who are one of my, I'd say, I don't know if you said consider them a dark horse to win the NFC, because they're not one of the 2 or 3 favorites, but I would not be shocked if they did, because we've seen that the coach can coach, and they've got some talent there, and I especially like the reacquisition of Thielen during the latter part of training camp. Then there was the Miami Dolphins, who thought they were playing a 4th exhibition game, apparently. They did not get the news that they shortened the exhibition season. They were absolutely woeful. And at the same time, you had to be impressed with the Colts. You had to be impressed by Daniel Jones. You had to be impressed by Warren, the tight end, who I think is going to be, he might be one of the candidates for Player of the Year. Now, we're only going on one game, but remember, he came in with a lot of positive hype, a lot of positive expectations, and a lot of proof. Where was it? At the Penn State to back it up. So he lived up to, I think, to billing, and we might see another quality tight end emerging, much as we did Brock Bowers of the Raiders last year. And the Raiders had a nice little win on the road against the Patriots. Not a total surprise, although I thought it was a good spot for the Patriots. And of course, living here in Vegas and going to several Raiders games, I'm looking forward to them to have a successful season. And of course, after we did the show, we had the Thursday night game with the Spittoon. Carter the Spittoon, the Spittoon attempt to hit her. That was really weird. Still can't understand it. And although, and if we want to talk about it, even without Carter, the Eagles still showed some defensive vulnerabilities with some of the losses that they had, and Dallas was able to complete some big plays. And at the same time, and again, even though it was without Carter, I still liked the Dallas offense and some of the things that it showed. And I think it shows again with that when Dak Prescott is healthy, they are a decent offense, notwithstanding the drop passes or the ones that should have been caught by CeeDee Lamb. And then on Friday night, not overly surprised that the Chargers beat the Chiefs. I was a little bit surprised that the Chiefs defense under Spagnuolo was as vulnerable as it was. And that suggests some issues that may be going, the Chiefs may have going forward. And of course, we'll talk about the big Super Bowl rematch a little bit later on with the Chiefs hosting the Eagles. And it's basically close to a pick'em game. I've seen the Eagles 1.5 point favorites. I won't be surprised if the game does close at pick'em, because there's reasons to like both sides in that game. But overall, it was an interesting week. I will note that it played true to form. There were 2 games here in Vegas that ended up in most places at pick'em: the Atlanta-Tampa Bay game and the Monday night game, which draw some late Bears money to close at pick'em. But of the 14 games that had a line, and there were a lot of small lines in this game. I think there were 4 to 6 lines, I think, under 4 points, maybe even under 3 points. The favorite team won, 11-3 straight up, but perhaps suggestive of some parity. Point spread results in those 14 games were 7-7. Favorites and dogs.
Interesting. One of the favorites that won shouldn't have won. The Bengals. They got outgained by 200 yards.
Was it 141 yards?
141
and by the
yards of offense. Yeah.
And the defense gave up yardage, but they didn't give points up. They didn't give up, key plays. Although, to be fair, they'd still be playing perhaps if they had unlimited overtimes because of the missed extra point on Cleveland's second touchdown.
Yeah, they missed the extra point. They missed a close field goal, and two of Flacco's both of his interceptions were bounces off the hands of Judy and Tillman.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, you heard what Judy came out and said today.
Well,
I think it was today. Maybe it was, yeah. They asked him about Baltimore's defensive secondary, and Judy said, it doesn't present a challenge.
well, at least you got to like the confidence, I suppose.
We'll see how much he likes it on Thursday, on Sunday, each time he gets hit.
Yeah, well, I believe the last time they played the starters against the Ravens, they won. They won outright.
I believe didn't they? Haven't they split their season series like the last 3-4 years?
I can actually look it up, but I know that a lot of those games have gone either way. They in the middle of the season with Jameis Winston, the Browns beat the Ravens, but in Week 18, the backups came in. The Browns were just mailing that one in, so that didn't really count. So I have it right here, and I think it's interesting to talk about. So it's 2024 they split, 2023 they split, 2022 they split, 2021 they split. 2020 was the last time they didn't split.
That was the COVID year.
That was the COVID year, yeah. Ravens won 38-6 and then 47-42. And that 47-42 is that crazy Monday night game where Baker Mayfield went nuts.
Yeah. I wonder if we just saw between the Bills and the Ravens Sunday night the most entertaining game of the year.
Could be. I don't know what side you were on, but I had the Ravens -1, and I felt very confident.
Oh, you should have. I would say they probably had about a 99-point-something% chance of winning the game straight up with about 4.5 minutes to go before the Bills got that first of the 3 scoring plays that they had in the last 4 minutes.
Yeah, Derrick Henry fumbled. I mean, I thought that was different than the Minnesota-Chicago game where they kind of compared the two, but I thought that Minnesota, their comeback was more legitimate, whereas like Buffalo's comeback, while it was impressive, it was aided by Henry's fumble. If Henry doesn't fumble, Baltimore wins the game. So Baltimore made a mistake, and you know what it reminded me of last year? The Eagles.
By the way, that's the one I think I said last week because the game was so close to pick them. You might want to tease both sides.
Yeah, that definitely worked.
Didn't look very good in the late part of the fourth quarter, but it turned out to be a very entertaining finish. I did not have a play itself on the game other than the teaser.
Yeah. I had Baltimore -1, so that was unfortunate. But you know that reminded me of where the 2 games the Eagles had last year. They lost. They lost 3 games, not excluding the Tampa game. They lost week 2 to Atlanta because Saquon Barkley dropped the pass.
Yeah,
and then they lost to Washington late in the year because Devontae Smith dropped the pass. You had like 2 very good players on that Eagles team making a mistake at the end of the game. That's what Baltimore
just like
did.
Derrick Henry. Yeah.
Yep. So
just shows these guys are human. They're not perfect.
Yeah, and the Eagles bounced back twice from those games, and so maybe Baltimore will, but then again, they do play Cleveland. So
also remember Baltimore last year was hosting the Raiders and leading them by 10 points in the fourth quarter, and they ended up losing that game, and that came after that toe tap in game 1. So they started out 0-2 last year, and they're in danger of doing the same thing this year because in many ways you could say Baltimore against the Raiders last year, it's sort of like Baltimore against Cleveland this year, other than the fact that A, it's a division rival, and B, Cleveland has had some recent success against the Ravens.
Yeah, and I'd say Cleveland is a better quarterback than the Raiders did. Flacco
last year,
yeah. So that's an interesting game. The line is higher than it was than that Ravens game was. So that'll be interesting to talk about. Chris's
I think part of that also was because, and of course, it's a little bit not all that dissimilar this year, other than the way the games ended. But Kansas City, defending Super Bowl champs, taken to the wire at home by the Ravens. Who was considered at the time and ultimately turned out to be a legitimate AFC title contender, even though they lost that game in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs led a decent amount, I think, but Baltimore had a great comeback, and then, as you said, the toe tap was the deciding factor in that game. So, lots of great games to talk about this week. I can't wait to get to them. So let's just do it.
You mean we're doing college also with the great games?
Yeah.
Although to be honest, there aren't that many great games. No, Notre Dame, Texas A&M may be that one. LSU and Florida lost a lot of luster with Florida's amazing loss last week.
Yeah, you know what? I never handicap these games in college football. I post 5 college picks each week, and it's really just what I like. It's not the big game. So like I have a pick on New Mexico UCLA, for example, but I don't have like the big games.
Are you laying the points with UCLA?
No, I like New Mexico.
I can't. I mean, I'm not playing the game, but I would lean towards New Mexico. If you watch UCLA, number one, they are not very physical. Number two, they commit so many what I call inexcusable penalties, offsides, illegal motion, false starts. I mean, those are, mental. You want to get caught for holding. Okay. That's an execution. Okay. Yeah. Penalty. That one you can understand because you try to get away with as much as you can, and you depend how the, officials are going to call it. And sometimes they don't see it correctly, but there's really, almost like an offside or an illegal motion and certainly a false start, lack of concentration.
Yeah, UCLA is a soft defense, and New Mexico they kept to 17 against Michigan, so
yeah,
showing some moxie there. So those are one of my 5 picks. Chris has nice bounce back in college. Yeah, we went 5-0 in college.
Very nice.
So that's nice. Yeah. Okay, let's get to the NFL games. And the Thursday one, we have Washington and Green Bay, which is going to be a good one, I think. Green Bay, they were -3 on Sunday night. Now they're -3.5. I like Washington here. I know Green Bay looked very impressive against Detroit, but that went against something I said last week, where I've been saying all summer, where I've been anti-Detroit. I think the Lions are not going to make the playoffs this year. I bet them not to at +190. I think that losing both coordinators, losing 2 interior linemen, is just going to be way too much. Plus, a lot of their defensive players who got hurt last year, just 3 of them aren't even back. So they're pretty thin on defense too. So they have a lot wrong with that team. So I think that as great as Green Bay looked, is a little misleading because I think people remember Detroit from last year. This is not the same Detroit team. And I think Washington's one of my favorite teams in the NFL. They're both these teams are my Group A. Which
regardless of what you call their nickname. One of your favorite teams.
Yeah, the Redskins commanding a football team here.
There you go.
I like Washington here, especially with the hook. I even like them at +3. +3.5 seems even better. Which side do you like in this game?
I'm actually seeing a lot of 3s here in Vegas, but I'm also seeing 3.5s. I think over at Circa, which I think was one of the earlier ones to open their lines. I believe they opened at. Let me just check it here since I can call it right up on the screen. I believe it opened at 4.5 and immediately got
wow.
Yeah, immediately get bet down to where it's pretty much right now. It's at 3 there, and 3 in a lot of places. Some of the other places 3.5. I've gone back and forth in this one. I decided liking Green Bay only because regardless of what you think about Detroit, they're still a better opponent than the opponent that the Washington faced last week in the Giants. And so I think that Green Bay faced a little more difficult test. Plus, they also played it well. Both Washington and Green Bay faced familiar opponents because of them both being in division games, and they both played at home. So I'm not as down on Detroit as you are. Clearly, they're not the same team as they were last year. Nonetheless, let's see what happens now when they go up against a team where we're going to find out a little bit more about their defense playing at home on the fast track against a Washington team that added some nice weapons in the offseason. These are 2 teams that I'm most likely in Green Bay and Washington will be on more than against them. I think laying at home, the lines, regardless of what you think about Detroit, the line of Green Bay at 3 basically says on a neutral field, this is either Green Bay 1 or a pick 'em there. So playing them at home in a game where basically, we know that in the NFL, I think it's 5 out of every 6 games the points don't matter. It's about 84 to 86% that the straight up winner of the game also covers the spread. Now, obviously, that's when favorites win and cover or underdogs pull the upset. And the 14 to 16% of the time that the line matters is the favorite wins but doesn't cover. I don't have the numbers in front of me of how often that happens, that a favorite wins and doesn't cover when the line is between 1 and 3, where normally the points don't come into play. Although certainly if it's a game priced that way and it comes down to a 2-point conversion missed at the end of a game, that could come into play depending upon whether it was the dog or not who missed the attempted 2-point conversion to tie. I don't know. It's more than a lean, but it's not quite a solid opinion. As far as Green Bay goes, I do like the over in the game because I do expect both teams to be able to move the ball on the respective defenses. I do like the Green Bay defense, some of the things they've done, and Quinn has always been a defensive, coach of Washington, always been a defensive guy, and he got them to play well last year. So I'm taking a look to see what the total is on that game. I want to say it's around 48 or 49. If I remember correctly. In fact, I'm showing 48.5 in most places. So I could see the losing team in this game getting to 24.
Yeah, I can see that too. I have the numbers for you. So you asked how many times has a team favored by 3 or less? One.
No, less than 3.
Less than 3. Yeah. Okay. So less than 3, 1 and not covered. It's happened 56 times since 1989, out of 9,272.
Yeah.
So,
which I don't know the quick math, but it sounds like it's about 98%.
Yeah. It's pretty low. So it's let me see. It's 0.6.
Now obviously that means that you're. I'm sorry.
It's 0.6% of the time it happens.
No, I missed the first part of that. I lost a little bit of that. 90.
Yeah, it's 0.6% of the time it happens.
0.6.
Yeah, hold on.
Less than 1%. Yeah.
It's actually no, hold on. I have the real number here. It's I did that wrong. It's 1.2%. 1.2% of the time. Yeah.
Now that is not all games where the line is 1.5, because we're only looking at the games where the favorite is 1.5 and loses. The favorite is under 3, loses the game, wins the game, but does not cover that small number where the tiny favorite wins but fails to cover.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, So basically, if you like, well, let's use. Now, last week was one of those situations, for example, where Pittsburgh, favored by 2.5, won by 2, and didn't cover against the Jets.
Yeah. That's what happened. Of course, I had Pittsburgh -3, or I know I had -2.5 in the Super Contest. They won by 2 magically.
Yeah,
just had to happen that way, of course.
So because I like Green Bay, I like them playing at home. They got to go on the road after this game, and not sure if I'll play it, but I won't lay 3.5. It's a question of whether I want to lay the 3.
Yeah, it makes sense. So 3.5's much tougher here, especially with Jane Daniels maybe getting the backdoor cover to get the 3. Okay, let's get to the Sunday game. The first Sunday game is Patriots at Dolphins. This line opened Dolphins -2.5 down to 1. 1.5's out there as well. I don't understand how Miami's favored after that performance last week. You mentioned it in the opener. That was one of the worst performances I've seen from a team ever. I can't think of, like, as a whole. Like, I've seen completely enough offenses, I've seen completely enough defenses, but like the coalescence of the two, like they allowed the Colts to score in every single possession, which never happened this century, and they didn't score a single point until garbage time. Tua didn't. Yeah. I think someone in this chat yesterday said Tua probably thinks he's in London right now. Like, he just looks so off. I think the concussions may have caught up to him.
The team seemed totally unprepared. Yep. Both sides of the ball, they look totally unprepared. You might even say disinterested, though that's hard to believe. But that's the appearance you got. And by the way, now before I tell you who I like in this game, before we talk about it, I will mention what I wrote in my newsletter, which I haven't sent out to you yet. I'll be doing it after the show. Miami has a history of being blown out early in the season. In 2019, the Dolphins lost their opener 59-10 at home to Baltimore, and followed that the next week with a 43-0 home loss to New England, ironically this week's opponent. In 2021, the Dolphins lost in week 2 at home to Buffalo 35-0. Those were under former head coach Brian Flores, but current coach McDaniel has been victimized with that slow start as well, with a 31-10 home loss in week 2 to Buffalo last year. So Miami has excelled at being blown out early in the season. And, in fact, one of those years, I think it was the one with Flores, maybe it was the year that they had the 2 losses. They actually played well enough, I think, to save his job. They ended up winning like 7 straight after. I think they started 0-7 and ended up with like 8 or 9 wins. So they did come back, but that's a lack of preparation. And if anything, you would think the heat in Miami would favor them in September.
You would think so, and I think when they're good, it would favor them. But when they're this bad, I don't think it matters. I just don't. I don't know how they rebound that quickly from that loss that they had. They like offensively, they couldn't block, and they lost their best blocker. James Daniels is injured, and they also lost the right tackle. So they're down 2 linemen from a line that couldn't block. And then on defense, they were starting a cornerback named Storm Duck, and Storm Duck got hurt. So someone worse than Storm Duck came in. This team is utterly awful. I think the Patriots are a little underrated. So I like New England. Like I said, I don't understand how the Dolphins are favored. I love New England here. What do you think?
Well, we always say don't overreact to what you saw in week 1. And that may be a case with Miami. We don't know, because sometimes you don't know in week 1. Week 1, and it's both true in college and pro, and usually for a couple of weeks, you get more questions asked than answered in week 1. You don't know if you're witnessing the team's best performance of the year. You don't know if you're witnessing their worst performance of the year, or you don't know if you're witnessing one of their average performances of the year. And you won't know that until you get 3, 4, 5 games into the season, where you can make a little bit more of an accurate assessment. Although, again, you still have after 4 or 5 weeks, you still have 2/3 to 3/4 of the schedule to be played. I do like Miami in this spot. Skill positions, and I know you mentioned about the line and all that, they still have much more talent than New England, and they've played together longer. They're healthy, basically, for the most part, with those receivers. We don't know what's going to happen with Tyreek Hill, if he'll have to show up in handcuffs or not after yet another negative off the field incident. But these players have pride. I like New England essentially, although I did play them under their 8.5 wins. I was not overly impressed by Drake May last week, but again, it's just one game. He may end up, 4 touchdowns this week. If the Dolphins do not win this game, I would not be shocked if McDaniel is fired after the game.
I can see that. And I agree with what you're saying, that you shouldn't overreact to week 1. But I think this is more than just week 1, because what we heard during the summer, or in August particularly, when they had joint practices with these teams, all 3 teams came away like thinking, what was
unimpressed.
Miami was awful. And then we got to the preseason when the Dolphins played their starters in 2 games. Both games were against backups, and in one case against third stringers against Jacksonville, and they couldn't block. They couldn't block the backups. And I thought, okay, so your joint practices awful, preseason awful, week 1 historically poor performance. I don't see this team rebounding. I really don't against anyone. I think they're the worst team in the NFL, and there are going to be some games later on where I'm like, okay, I want to go against this overreaction. I think the public's overreacting, but I don't. I like this is not the case here. I just think Miami is going to be awful this year, and so at least until they fire McDaniel, and then maybe they bounce back a little bit. But he doesn't seem like he's coaching well at all right now.
No, and I can understand that, and I understand why the move came in, but still, this is one of those. There are a lot of plays out there that sometimes just don't make sense, and very often it's because of the line. And you ask yourself, if Miami played as poorly. Now, I don't remember what the look-ahead line was of this game that came out last Tuesday.
I have it.
Before week 1.
It's Dolphins minus 2.5.
Yeah, that sounds about right. A little bit under a field goal, but we'll see. Would I be? I wouldn't be surprised with almost any result in this game, and that includes. Well, I might be surprised if Miami wins in a blowout, but I don't think I would be surprised if they lose in a blowout, or if it's a game that goes down to the final few plays either way. But I'm almost sure I'm going to be on Miami.
Yeah, I can see a Vrabel team getting blown out. They usually keep games close. They usually excel as underdogs. I know this is a new team. I know they lost
Yeah.
to the Raiders, but look, they led at halftime, and I think the Raiders are not bad. I think the Raiders are a fairly average team, and so I think the Patriots a little bit worse. So it made sense to lose to them, but I think they're better than Miami.
The thing is with Miami again, and you go back and you talk about the roster problem. This is still a team that the last 3-4 years has won at least 9 games
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
same coach.
yeah,
So,
yeah. That's true.
but as I pointed out when I read, and this is part of the season, they are slow starters.
Yeah,
They're like the
McDaniel.
Cincinnati Bengals of the AFC East.
Yeah, yeah, Bengals will get to them. McDaniel odds down to plus 200. First head coach fired. Actually, I thought it'd be like minus 150 at this point. Chris, tell me where I can bet that. I would love to bet that. Dayball's at plus 400. And John says they're at home. They'll be in the shade while the Patriots are like an ant under the glass. So if the Dolphins were a functional football team, I think that would be a big difference. The problem is the Dolphins are not. John, remember last year when Miami was in decline, they hosted Jacksonville week 1. I know Jacksonville's used to the heat, but Jacksonville led that game for most of the afternoon, and they still covered.
Jacksonville isn't really used to the heat as much as people think. They're like 350 miles away from Miami.
They're
at the very northern part of Florida. They get snow there.
Yeah. That's true. Okay, let's get to the next game. So speaking of the Bengals, we have the Bengals hosting the Jaguars here. The line was Bengals minus 5.5. It's dropped to 3.5. I think probably sharp money doing that. I like Jacksonville a lot here. You just mentioned the Bengals struggling to start the season. They are now 2-9 straight up under Zach Taylor / Joe Burrow in weeks 1 and 2. Their 2 wins were last week against Cleveland, where they got outgained by 200 yards, and back in 2021 when Dalvin Cook fumbled over midfield in overtime.
Yeah.
They're very close to being 0-11 in weeks 1 and 2. Also, their defense is awful. The Browns just move the ball up and down the field.
Didn't they have 300 something yards in that game? 300.
300 something yards. Yeah, the Browns were the more impressive offense despite Flacco starting, and the Bengals can't block either. So they have a lot wrong with them. They also lost one lineman, Lucas Patrick, to an injury. Jacksonville should be able to keep this game close. They have a good offense. They should be able to score easily in Cincinnati. So I like Jacksonville plus 3.5. I think they could win outright. So what do you think?
I don't have a strong opinion on this one because the line came down a little bit too much from that 5.5. It almost looks now. Of course, it did last week's line with the Bengals favored by 5.5 at Cleveland looked reasonable, even with all the problems. This line now at 3.5 looks a little bit unreasonable playing at home against a Jacksonville team that I liked. What I've seen of them throughout the summer, the moves they made in the off season. I remember even last week, I felt a little bit uncomfortable laying a number against Carolina, but I did so anyway because I just don't like much right now. Early on Carolina, this line just looks a little bit too cheap. I would almost say if you like the Jaguars, rather than taking the 3.5, you do play the money line.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do both.
I can't imagine the Bengals offense being as close to as bad as they were last week against Cleveland. And look, you tell me that the Bengals give up 16 points in the game. I ask, first of all, is that the end of the first quarter, or if that's at the end of the game, they must have won by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, well that's
right, awesome. So
that Andre Schmizit guy that the Browns had a kicker was awful. And like I said, they had the 2 interceptions that were the result of drops. So the Browns should have scored more than 16. I think this can be the opposite. I think the Bengals will score in this game, but I think they're going to allow like 500 yards of offense. It's going to be awful here.
So then what I might do, and I haven't done it yet, but I have considered it because of what I said and what you said, is that maybe I look over the total rather than back either side. Or if I do have a strong opinion on the Jags, and I do like them as a team, and now that the number is that low, and I may consider playing the Bengals, it tees Jacksonville up to 9.5 or 10.
Yeah, I could see that. It makes sense. And if you can do those 13-point teasers, you can get them all the way to 16.5, which is quite nice. Okay, so the other Ohio team from that game, Browns at the Ravens. This line was minus 12.5. It's down to 11.5. Baltimore is in such a rough spot here. They just had that insane game against Buffalo, and now after this game they have to play on Monday night against the Lions. And I know I said I'm down on the Lions, but this team was still 15-2 last year. It's a primetime game, so this is a classic sandwich game.
That game's at Baltimore, is it not?
I thought it was at Detroit. I could be
Detroit
wrong.
game.
Let me see. I have the schedule here. It's at Baltimore. It's at Baltimore.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think this is a classic sandwich spot here for Baltimore. And we saw it last year. You brought it up earlier where they played the Chiefs. And even though they lost, they had the Raiders and then they had Dallas. So they looked like they looked ahead to Dallas.
And Dallas, if I recall, was coming off a very good season the year before. Then they could go 12-5 or something that year.
Yeah, and Dallas demolished Cleveland week 1, so divisional opponent there. So they had every reason to look ahead to Dallas. And even though they lost, they still look past the Raiders. I think history could repeat itself. Now, maybe you say they learned from their mistakes. It could be possible, but look, Baltimore still made the playoffs with a great record last year. So what mistake did they have to learn here? I don't really see Baltimore going 100% for this game. And Cleveland is not one of the worst teams in the NFL. Like they are not as bad as Miami or New Orleans. Like they have a really good defense. They have a good offensive line outside of left tackle. They have Judy, Tillman, Njoku, Fannin, Sampson's a good receiver out of the backfield. They have some weapons that are decent. And then Flacco is at least a professional quarterback, unlike what they had last year with Deshaun Watson and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So I think Cleveland's the right side here, plus 11.5. I don't love it, but I think that they will cover. What do you think?
Well, we talked before the show about Judy of Cleveland dissing the Baltimore secondary, and I don't think you exactly want to put any more emphasis on it or fire up an opponent, especially a divisional opponent, especially coming off of the way that they lost Baltimore last week. I still have trust in John Harbaugh, knowing that that last week's game was important against Buffalo. They should have won it. It's not a fatal loss. They still have an opportunity to get the #1 seed. But if they lose this game, then they have to make up 2 games because they lose the tiebreaker to Buffalo. And at the same time, you don't want to lose divisional home games, though you're supposed to win those, especially if you're a playoff team. And of course, as you and I talked before, Baltimore and Cleveland have split their season series, I think, each year since 2021. So that's 4 straight years that they've gone 1-1. A couple of those years, Cleveland actually had a pretty good team. One year that I think they won the division and then went down and got blown out by the Texans. I think that was 2 years ago. But this number suggests the ability of Baltimore to be able to put points up on the board against Cleveland. I think the defense is a lot better than we saw against Buffalo, because Buffalo may be one of the 2 or 3 best offenses in the NFL. Now, of course, the way that they got those points late, and of course it took a Derrick Henry fumble, but still look at what Derrick Henry did as far as running the football. And I think that will enable them to have some success against Cleveland. Yeah, they've got some good defensive players, of course, but I like the spot for Baltimore. I think Harbaugh will emphasize the fact that, hey, look what happened last year when we took a team a little bit too lightly. Although, to be fair, I think it was a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter, so it wasn't as if they played a bad game and were behind throughout and fighting to come back. So it's just a spot where I can see I think Cleveland is improved. I did not play them over their season total, but I did consider it because I do expect them to be improved. I should go with Flacco. I like Stefanski, the coach. But I've always had great respect for Harbaugh.
You know what? I didn't play the Browns either way. My thought was I actually thought they were going to beat the Bengals. I was so convinced they're going to beat the Bengals that I thought I was going to bet their season total under after they beat the Bengals. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Now, by the way, your thought in them beating the Bengals, did that have more to do with something positive on the Browns or something negative, understandably so, against Cincinnati?
Why not both? I think the Bengals, they're slow starters, awful defense. They can't block. They have a lot. I thought they were the most overrated team in the NFL. And the Browns, I think, are a little underrated. Like I said, they have a great defense, good offensive line, good playmakers, a professional quarterback.
How's the running game?
Yeah, look, they're not a perfect team. They're not even an average team. I think they are below average. but I don't think they're an awful team. Like they're not the Dolphins, they're not the Saints, they're not the Titans. Like they are a level above that. I
Okay.
think with like the Patriots, Jets, like I think they're in that zone as long as Flacco's starting. Now, my thought to betting them under win total after that beat a win over Cincinnati or projected win, I thought more had to do with Flacco eventually getting benched because they have to see what they have in these young quarterbacks. Like they have to.
Yeah,
Like,
the two rookies.
yeah. So, once they're out of it, and once they're like 2-6 or 2-7, like they have to go to either Gabriel or Sanders. And once they do that, they're going to take a step backward into that group F zone. Just because they're not going to have a professional quarterback anymore. So that was my thought process.
Or at least not an experienced quarterback anymore.
Yeah,
We're
sure.
We still don't know about the two rookies. They could turn out to be okay, but they certainly don't have experience.
That's true. Although, I mean, I hated Gabriel coming out of college, and Sanders. I just don't think there's anything there. I could be wrong. But I just don't see it with those two guys. So
well, you are in agreement with the scouts who saw Sanders drop as far as he did in the draft.
Yeah.
After being thought of being mid. Yeah, I wouldn't say top, but certainly probably a mid-level first-round choice.
Yeah, Andy, I think we talked between the Super Bowl and I think after the draft. I mentioned this a few times on the show. So I like everyone else had Sanders in the first round initially, and I showed my mock draft to a scout on an NFC team that didn't need a quarterback, and he replied with like 6 words. He said, "Get Sanders out of the first round," or whatever. I don't know how many words that is.
Yeah,
But
put him outside the first round. Yeah,
that's all he said was get Sanders out of the first round. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, we have a 3rd round grade on this guy. I'm like, wow, not even 2nd round, 3rd round.
Yeah.
So and he's no reason to lie to me. They have first of all, is off the record, and second, they already have a quarterback. They have a franchise quarterback, so they weren't going to draft him anyway. So that was very interesting, and it came to be true. All right,
well, let me ask you one question about that scout. Mm-hmm. Was he or is he on the staff of an AFC North team?
No, NFC.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure, as opposed to, we want everyone to think he's a bet because we don't want to have to face him in our division twice a year.
Right.
That gamesmanship.
Right.
No, it could have been.
Yeah, it's an NFC team, so
that's fine.
They're not going to play. They're not going to play often. Okay. We have a divisional rivalry here: Giants at Cowboys. This line was, I believe, maybe I was hallucinating. I saw a 3 earlier Sunday night. It went all the way up to 5.5. I swear I saw a 6 as well. Maybe it's down to 5.5. We had questions about who the quarterback was going to be.
By the way, I am showing that in a couple of places. The line opened Dallas 4.5 here in Vegas, 5 in a few other places, and that was after the Giants lost to Washington, and obviously several days after Dallas put in that competitive effort in Philly.
Yeah, maybe I was seeing things. I don't know. It's tired or something. I thought I saw Cowboys -3, but maybe that's wrong. So Cowboys are -5.5. There were some questions about who the quarterback was going to be. First Brian Dable said he was going with Wilson, and then he said he was going to have to ask ownership if he could go to Dart, which I thought was bizarre. And now, from what I heard, it's going to be Wilson again. I think I don't know if they made it official, but.
Well, I think Dable was doing the right thing and at least saying, you know what, maybe there's a 20% chance. So any time that Dallas has to spend gearing up for a rookie Dart, that's time that they can't spend concentrating on Russell Wilson and how he fits in with the Giants.
Yeah,
gamesmanship again.
Yeah, I don't know if you need time to game plan for Wilson though. He was so terrible too. Wilson, by the way, should send Tua Tagovailoa a gift basket. Because if it wasn't for Tua, everyone would be talking about how bad Wilson was. Whereas like Tua was the worst.
Oh, read the New York Post.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And the Daily News on Monday morning.
That's true.
Past Monday morning.
Yeah. So if this were Jackson Dart, I actually would like the Giants. I think this line's a little inflated, but I can't back Russell Wilson. I think he's absolutely horrible. I don't understand how they chose him over Jameis Winston. I think Winston's clearly the better veteran quarterback. I understand if you don't want to go to Dart, I get it, but if you're going to pick a veteran to be competitive, and Daboll's playing for his job or coaching for his job, Winston gives you a much better chance. I think. Like Winston won some games last year in Cleveland. Like
what's the contract numbers for Wilson and Jameis?
I think Wilson's getting more, but
that basically says you got to play him. He's got to play his way out of the job. I don't know that one game does it. 2 games might, however. I think. Daboll's comments sort of left open the possibility that we might make a change if we are limited to 2 field goals this week.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, but I had that thought when they signed Wilson. This is not even like a reaction to week 1, because they signed Winston first, and I'm like, okay, they're gonna have Winston, they're gonna have a rookie quarterback. It makes sense. And then they signed Wilson. I was like, they already have Winston. Why would they sign Wilson? He's worse. And then no, they went with Wilson. So I don't understand this. I think that sticking with Wilson might make the team quit. It's hard to say a team's going to quit, especially week 2. But like Daboll could lose the locker room with this.
Well, we know about Wilson's history of losing the locker room in Seattle and to a certain extent in Denver as well. Yep. I've not heard anything yet about the locker room. Maybe you have in New York.
Well, I mean, no, Neighbors was visibly frustrated last week.
Was he? Yeah, but who was he frustrated with? The offensive coordinator or the quarterback?
Maybe everyone.
It may have been that he wasn't involved enough in the game plan, and considering the lack of productivity, unless he was saying, Russell, make me your number 1 read, even if the play called for him to be number 3.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's such a bad situation. I think he. By the way, Neighbors had 12 targets, so that is 4 more than anyone else on the Giants. So I don't know how he could say.
I don't know what he's complaining about then either.
He was very involved. He had 12 targets. So
how many did he catch?
I believe 5. I think he went 5 for 72. Yeah, 5 for 72. Okay. So. It's not a great situation here. Like, believe me, I would love to back the underdog of this value against the Cowboys team. I'm not a big fan of, but I just can't get behind Russell Wilson. I think he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL right now. So as bad as this number is, I'm going to stick with the Cowboys. I don't know if I'm going to bet this game, but that's where I'm leaning. What do you think?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of 6s out there for the Cowboys, so that's probably going to be one of my tees down to pick'ems. Or find a reason to play the money line in a multiple team money line parlay that'll pay back maybe about plus 175 to 200 if I can find the right team. But if I had to make a play, I just think there's more room for the Giants to show improvement than for Dallas. I think Dallas surprised a lot of people, went up against a much better team in going up against Philadelphia, despite Philadelphia, missing its arguably best defensive player. I have to. I'm not sold on the Cowboys, but they may be a little bit better. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with Dak staying healthy. When he's healthy, he's put up some good numbers, and Dallas has made the playoffs for a number of those years. When he's been injured and missed a significant portion of time, Dallas has basically been a team that relied on an aging offensive line and a declining running game, and ended up like they did last year. What were they, 7-10? So it's not, we don't have to play every game. I did have to put out an opinion, so I took Giants plus 6, but it's not one that I can see myself playing. They didn't come close to covering the plus 6 against Washington, and right now Washington's a much better team than Dallas.
Yeah, you're right.
And both of these Giants games are on the road.
Yeah. Does Andrew Thomas's status impact your opinion at all?
They can't be much worse they can't be much worse with a replacement.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Not necessarily due to him, but I'm just talking about to the rest of the unit.
I'm just saying, if he comes back this week, like, does that make you a little like maybe consider betting the Giants plus 6 or not?
It might. I doubt it though, but it might because there are other games I like better.
Okay.
That's one of the things we got to keep in mind. We're going to give opinions on all these games. We don't have to play. Well, I'm not going to say we don't. Well, we really don't have to play any of them, but we will play some of them. But we don't have to play all of them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that though.
Unless you know that playing a whole bunch of games you can hit 62%, and I've never met a person that comes close to that playing every game. You got to limit it. And unless sometimes I'm not going to say you're going to make bad decisions on some of the games you play. you're going to make decisions that just don't work out, but the handicapping might have been solid.
I know people
Like with the Ravens, for example.
yeah, I know people who bet every single game, and I'm like, you're crazy. I don't know
Well,
how you.
as long as they don't play the same amount.
They don't. So
Yeah.
let's leave something. Okay. Next game is Rams at Titans. This line is Rams minus 5.5. It opened 4.5.
I'm seeing a lot of sixes out there also.
All right, I see BetMGM is a 6. Everything else here is a 5, 5.5. A little juice on the 5.5 minus 112 here, minus 115 here. So Fanatics has minus 110, but they're not a real sportsbook. I love the Rams here. I want to fade the Titans. You said earlier that the Titans are not quite what they could be in the future. I don't know if we talked about that before we started recording, but
I think we did.
Okay, so yeah. So Tennessee's going to improve as the year progresses, but right now they're not quite there. They have receivers who drop a lot of passes. Their defense is very suspect. They can't really get to the quarterback on the edge. They have major problems in the secondary and linebacking core. I think that the Titans are one of the 4 or 5 worst teams in the NFL, whereas the Rams, and I know you feel this way, the Rams are one of the better teams in the NFL. I have them in my top 10, very close to Group A. My only question was Matthew Stafford's back. And he looked fine last week. I know they only scored 14 points, but Houston's defense is elite, whereas this is a much easier opponent. And this is an early start time for the Rams.
Houston, by the way, Houston almost won that game last week.
Yeah, they did. I mean, Parkinson fumbled in the red zone, and then the Texans took over. They had a chance, and then they fumbled. So it's kind of funny that they both made the same mistake. This is a sort of it's not East Coast time, but it's a sort of early start time for the Rams, which I know in the past people would always make, oh, early start time, fade this team. Actually, a lot of the coaches now
doesn't make much of a difference.
Yeah. Actually,
I know a number of people have done research on that over the years, and it's close to 50-50, going from Pacific time zone to Eastern time zone.
Yeah.
It's about 50-50.
So for me, it's more of it's a coach by coach basis, because some coaches have never done well and some coaches have done very well. Sean McVay.
Well, the question I would ask you, and again, people have to take everything in context. The coaches who do poorly, do they do poorly everywhere? Or is this an aberration? In other words, they cover 57% of the time in games not starting on the East Coast, and they cover 41% of games on the East Coast. It's like the old thing, Tampa Bay is, horrible when the temperature is below 32 degrees. They always used to talk about that. They were horrible when the temperature was 75 degrees. So it's not like there's a big distinction. When you make that kind of comparison, you have to put it within the context of how does this subset of results, and again, the subset of results is always going to be a smaller sample size than the overall database. How does that smaller subset compare to the overall? Is there a significant difference? Do you go from 61% to 57%, or 67 or 61 to 65, or do you go from 61 to 43%? That's a little bit more significant, assuming that even the size of the small sample of the database is large enough to make it meaningful. You want more than just 8 or 10 games.
Well, I have the answer for you. So Sean McVay, in his career as coach of the Rams, is 10-5 against the spread in early games at 1:00. In road games in total, that's including these games, he's 39-31 against the spread. So you're talking about 67% compared to 55%.
I'm sorry, what was the first number? He was at what, 10-5?
10-5
versus 39-31 overall. 31, so basically, he is 29. Well, the 29 and 26, I think in the non-East Coast games.
Yes,
because that would be then 39 and 11.
So we're talking about
that.
Yeah, so we're talking about 67% versus 52.7%.
Well, I'm looking at it as +5 above 500, which is nice, versus +8 above, including those 5 games.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So I mean, he's done better.
Let me put it this way. Let me put it the way I would phrase it this way: is it's not necessarily a positive for McVay, but it's certainly not a negative.
Sure. Yeah, but you know what? I was thinking. I thought that too, and I thought maybe they overcompensate for it because they know it was tough in the past, and so they just have it down to a science what they're doing, and maybe they're just more focused in these games, or at least the coaches are. I don't know. Maybe. But I know that like Jim Harbaugh, when he was coach of the Niners, he always used to they used to stay somewhere on the East Coast. I forget where.
Yeah,
They used to,
usually like in Cleveland or something,
yeah,
because there was
yeah,
a connection with the DeBartolo and in New York and Cleveland or something like that.
yeah. Pete Carroll good too. Jim Harbaugh good too. Yeah, they kind of figure it out. Whereas like when Mike Holmgren was coach of the Seahawks and they had some good teams, he was utterly atrocious in those early games. So I think they've kind of figured it out. But anyway, that was kind of like a small thing here. I like the Rams. Where do you stand on this game?
I like the under in the game, and I do like Tennessee plus the 6. I was not overly impressed. I do like the Rams this year as a team. I was not overly impressed with their performance, but obviously they were going up against a much better defense in Houston than they will face this week against Tennessee. But I also look for rookie quarterbacks who have some issues in their first start. And to a certain extent, you can say McCarthy, who could be considered a rookie. Well, he had an issue in the first half of his game, but he had no difficulties in the second half of the game. But maybe Cam Ward getting used to, this is the first game he played at NFL caliber speed. Right. the game speed, because you can't replicate that in practice, OTAs, or preseason games. So maybe there's a little bit something that they can take out of it. And I was a little bit concerned, even with Houston's defense, that the Rams could only struggle to get 14 points on the board. Now they are going into a place with Tennessee where, again, I expect there to see some improvement as the season wears on. I'm not so sure that the Rams are really a blowout kind of team on the road, especially early in the season. I do like their defense, which is, again, part of the reason why I like the under. But I could see this being, one of those 23-20, 21-17 type games that the Rams win simply because they make the bigger play at the right time.
Yeah, it makes sense. I feel like Tennessee was close last week just because Denver kept making mistakes. Like Bo Nix had the 3 turnovers, and Denver also muffed the kickoff return. Whereas, like, I don't think the Rams will make those mistakes. Like, Stafford's not going to.
Yeah, Tennessee made mistakes as well as some of those passes and things like that. So both teams. Yeah. It's the first game of the season for both of these teams.
Yeah, although I think you'd expect Tennessee to make those mistakes, whereas Denver you would not expect.
Well, Denver comes in with the expectations, and Bo Nix comes in now with a history behind him of being broken down on film by everybody in the offseason. So again, it's a 1-game sample, and as I said at the start, we don't know if it's a typical game, their best game, their worst game, whatever. So I'm just going to write off. Week 2 tells me a little bit more about what to read into game 1.
Yeah. That's true. It's Chris saying McVay's a 7-2 record against rookie quarterbacks. I would love to know. I don't have that breakdown. I'd love to know like what caliber of quarterback he's played and what the spread record was. But yeah. Okay, so we disagree on this one. Let's get to the next one.
All the one we all know that Belichick was outstanding against rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think John Harbaugh is as well. If I remember correctly.
But then again, those Harbaugh and Belichick over their careers, especially Belichick, were good against every quarterback for the most part. Not named Peyton Manning in the case of Belichick.
Right. That's true. Although you expect Belichick being a defensive mastermind. Yeah. I like any great defensive coordinator against a rookie quarterback who's non-elite, not like a Jane Daniels or something, but worse. All right, so Bills at Jets. This line was Bills minus 8.5. I do remember that. This line's dropped to 6.5. So it's gone through 7, which is the second most prominent key number. So I think this is a very tough spot for Buffalo. They're coming off that crazy comeback against Baltimore. And then after this game, they have to play in 4 days. Now, it is against
by the way, that's another thing I was going to mention about the Rams in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Rams, I think, visit Philadelphia next week.
I saw that.
They might do just enough to win.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I that was like my one.
And by the way, it's not playoff revenge that will be motivating the Rams. I mean, they'll talk about it, but it'll be the fact that this could be a game that decides, if they meet in the playoffs, who hosts it, because Rams are favored in the NFC West, the Eagles favored in the NFC East.
I remember writing that up, and I said that I would be more concerned with the look ahead if they were playing at home. Where they were comfortable. I think playing on the road, especially in an early start, I thought that might focus them a little bit.
Have you heard if they're going to be staying back east after Tennessee?
I don't know. I haven't heard that yet. So
that'd be something to think about for next week, because two factors. If they do stay back east, then they don't have to worry about getting comfortable and comfortable with the environment and everything because they'll live there for a week, as opposed to coming back in on, say, Saturday or whatever, or maybe Friday.
Yeah, I think it's always great when they stay out there because they don't have to have all that crazy.
Now, by the way, I don't know if you have access to what those records are. When West Coast teams like San Francisco stay east, how do they do that second game? Is it a benefit?
That's unfortunately not in the database.
But you would think it would be a benefit, or they wouldn't do it. But then again, it makes sense. It makes sense to do it for all and a variety of reasons. But the fact that something makes sense, and we know this all the time when we're handicapping football games, the fact that something makes sense doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yeah, usually the most logical thing doesn't pan out.
Yeah,
I've learned over the years. All right. Anyway, we have Bills and Jets here. Bills are favored by 6.5, and I said I think a very rough spot for Buffalo. They're coming off that crazy comeback against Baltimore, and then next week they play in 4 days. Now it's against Miami. Still, it's a divisional opponent.
Yeah.
And the Jets are, I think, better than Miami, but I don't know if the Bills favor one more than the other. So either way.
By the way, that game against Miami is the first of a 3-game homestand for the Bills. Miami, New Orleans, New England. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, they look. That's why I love their over win total. They have the third easiest schedule in the NFL, so there's gonna be more of this to come. But yeah, no, I think the Bills are going to win this game. As far as covering, though, I think it's gonna be tough given the potential look ahead or look backward situation. And the Jets show that they were competitive last week. Yeah. They ran the ball extremely well. The Bills are not great against the run, as we saw on Sunday night. So Breece Hall should be able to pick up some.
But he's no Derrick Henry though.
Yeah, that's 100% true. But the Jets do have a really good offensive line. That's one of the reasons why I thought they were underrated heading into the year. And I think Breece Hall he's not Henry, but he's pretty talented. And Justin Fields.
Are you concerned about what the Jets defense allowed to the Steelers last week?
Yeah, I am.
Although to be fair, it was only 271 total yards, 53 of which were on the ground. 20 carries, so they didn't even average 3 yards per carry against that Jets defense.
Yeah. I am concerned about that defense, especially the run defense. It looked really bad, and we expected it to be bad. I thought their pass defense would be better, but although I think the Steelers kind of like lucked into some completions, that Metcalf ricochet, for example.
Yeah, but if you break down every game, there are things that could have gone either way. Passes that should have been caught that were dropped. Passes that were dropped that should have been, that were caught that should have been dropped. Things like that. So
yeah. So, like I said, I think the Bills win this, but don't cover. I think they probably win by 3 or 6 or something. I like this better at 8.5. At 6.5, it's tougher to take this. I don't see myself betting this game. Where do you stand?
I do prefer the Jets in this one. Not a strong opinion, but for a number of the reasons you mentioned. Also, the fact I like the way that the Jets reflected the Aaron Glenn attitude and Jets culture this past week. They didn't quit. They got out to the early lead. They fell behind, and then they had a chance late if they didn't give up that 60-yard field goal at the end of the game to Boswell. So I think they acquitted themselves nicely. And again, they held the Steelers to under 300 yards, which is a nice thing to do. Not that the Steelers are a great offense, but Aaron Rodgers had a very good game yesterday, and the Jets on Sunday, and the Jets defense still played well. I am a little bit concerned, however, about the defense now having to face the Buffalo offense as opposed to the Pittsburgh offense. Although, and again, there's the trade-off. Aaron Rodgers is a quality player. I forget nothing about the quote-unquote revenge against his former team that he played for 1 year, basically. Aaron Rodgers is still a capable quarterback, even if he's aging. So, it's not as if he went up against, Kenny Pickett or somebody like that, Mason Rudolph even, to put up, the efforts that he had 200-something yards. So I do like the Jets plus the 6.5. I may or may not play it. I don't know if I would tease Buffalo get down in this spot because I do like the way that the Jets have, came out there, and you could see they were playing with energy in that game, even after they fell behind after leading for a good part of the game. So, they've played Buffalo decently in the past in these home games, including that game in which Rodgers got injured, and I think that one went to the overtime in that game. So. Not sure if I'll play it, but the only side I would play in this game is the Jets. And again, you talked about Buffalo coming off of that win last night against Baltimore. That means a lot. This is a divisional game, but they don't have to cover the spread to go 1-0 in the division.
Yeah.
especially with the Miami and New England games coming up, in 2 of the next 3 weeks, where they can take a commanding 3-0 lead in the division, 3-0 lead.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if you saw the advanced line on Dolphins at Bills for that Thursday night game. Andy, you there? You kind of I can see your video. Are you there? I think we lost Andy for a second. It says device not connected. So, well, I'm sure he'll come back. We have $5 super chat for D Zom. Thank you so much. Curious if your Ravens Super Bowl pick. Andy,
there we go.
You there?
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, we had a $5 super chat when you went away. Dizam says, curious to know if your Ravens Super Bowl pick changes at all. Buffalo gets the #1 seed. I was so close with Bills versus Ravens in my Super Bowl. I was like, I've always said this before. I write up my previews in advance because I need to have everything done before I make my predictions for everything. Because if I do one division and I post it, and then like it gets to Division 7, then I'm like, oh, this team is not as good, so I have to adjust my record. So I do everything in advance, and so I had like a month to decide. Because it was so close, Bills Ravens. I seriously thought about this for like a month. Bills Ravens. I ultimately decided on the Ravens after they got Jair Alexander. That was the that was the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. But it was so super close. But like, look, if Buffalo is at home, we just saw Baltimore have a 15-point lead with 4 minutes left in Buffalo. I don't think I really don't think
this game has not changed my opinion. I also have the Ravens to beat I think the Eagles as my official Super Bowl.
Okay, we completely agree.
If anything, the game the other night. Yeah, the game the other night, if anything, just strengthened my pick on Baltimore because it took a myriad of unusual factors late in the game. Now, we'll find out a little bit more about Baltimore this weekend, as we talked about in their game against Cleveland. What is Cleveland able to do against that Baltimore defense that was very forgiving against Buffalo? It shouldn't be able to do nearly as much. They should get about half the yards that Buffalo got. Let's see what happens. But you were mentioning that line for Baltimore at Miami in week 3.
Miami at Buffalo.
Miami at Buffalo, rather. Yeah. I'd have to say it's probably close to what the Ravens were. In their game against Cleveland this week.
Okay, so you think it's 11.5, or?
Well, I'll say 10 to 10.5.
It's 8.5. What is that?
What was it last week?
What do you mean? I only have 8. I mean, that's the advanced line. I don't know. I don't know if they changed or anything, but
it probably would have been less than 8.5 before taking into account Miami's opening week results.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you. You're looking at the 8.5 as the advanced line, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that would have been before Miami. You're saying right now. Well, we don't know what it is now because it's the advanced line for next week, week 3.
Yeah. Well, no, it's actually it's up already. It's up on FanDuel. Actually, on FanDuel they're listing Bills at -9.5.
Yeah, so I would go back. See, unfortunately, we don't have commercials, or I would go check and see what the advanced line was before the season started for this week 3 game.
Well, we could do commercials
because the 8.5. Okay, the 8.5 reflects the result of their loss to Indianapolis.
Yeah, we can do commercials. Drink Pepsi. It's good for you. Yeah,
that's okay.
Dizon, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Really appreciate it. What were your off-season Super Bowl predictions last year? I had the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, I believe. I'll look that up in 1 second, but I definitely had I don't know if I had the Eagles winning the Super Bowl or in the Super Bowl. I know I had them at least in the Super Bowl. It was I had Eagles. I had Eagles over Chiefs. Eagles 31, Chiefs 24 is my prediction last year.
Before the season. You mean before the season? Yeah. I think I had Detroit. I forget who I think I had Detroit and Cincinnati.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I Baltimore over Philadelphia this year as you do. So yes. Glad we're in agreement. Okay, so next one is Bears at the Lions. This line is Lions -6. It was 4.5, but despite Detroit losing, this line has gone up. I think a reaction to Chicago losing on national TV, I think, is greater impact. I don't agree with this line move. As I said before, I'm down on the Lions this year. I don't think they make the playoffs. Now, I don't think the Bears are great either by any means, but they are at least a competitive team. They are not that bad, and they have one big angle in this game. It's kind of like the low hanging fruit is Ben Johnson with supreme knowledge of Detroit's roster overall. So I think he can make a great game plan. Now, it hurts a little bit that they're in the short week. I don't love that, but I still like the Bears at +6. I think it's a great number here to counter the overreaction to the line.
I don't. By the way, I don't think the short week matters as much when you've got two teams that are very familiar with one another.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
You don't have to do a lot of. You don't have to do a lot of discovery like you do with an opponent. You see maybe in an interconference game once every 4 years, possibly, or even in a conference game once every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't considered that. That definitely makes sense. So I like Chicago here at +6. What do you think in this game?
I like Detroit. I still think there's enough talent on that team. The loser of this team is not only going to be 0-2, they're going to be 0-2 within the division, because they both lost to division rivals last week, and I think the Lions lost to the better of the two opponents faced by these two teams. And I still have some concerns about Caleb Williams, and we've talked about his propensity to not get rid of the ball and take the sack, and that, of course, could be a difference between 5 and 10 yards as opposed to an incompletion when you give up the down. Something that Ben Johnson said he's going to be working on, and he still has to work on it. Of course, it was just one game, and they did play well in the first half. But the fact that Minnesota was able to make so much in the way of adjustments in the second half is a little bit concerning, especially with a first-time starting quarterback. Now, yes, Johnson knows everything you need to know about Jared Goff, his strengths and weaknesses. Fundamentally, you still have a very nice running tandem of Montgomery and Gibbs that can do some damage against a Chicago defense that showed some vulnerabilities. Hutchinson for Detroit is back, and we saw how good they were last year. And you wonder how much of Detroit's offensive success the last few years was due to Johnson, or maybe Dan Campbell had a little bit to do with it as well. So now, of course, Campbell knows what works. They've got a new offensive coordinator who last year will make some adjustments. And yes, Johnson does know the abilities of what the Lions can do, more so offensively than defensively. But at the same time, Campbell knows a lot about the Chicago personnel as well, especially defensively, since they've had some success. I will point out, and it is a thing to consider, the Bears easily could have won that game at Detroit last year on Thanksgiving Day, but for some bubble-headed moves that cost the coach his job, something that was perhaps long overdue. So it's clearly a coaching upgrade. I'm not going to say it's quite the coaching upgrade when that's when the Chargers last year went from Staley to Jim Harbaugh. But that's only because Ben Johnson does not have a coaching record that Jim Harbaugh had when he took over. But Staley was every bit as bad as Eberflus or vice versa. I just think it's a good spot for Detroit to get things well. They were in I won't say they were in a bad spot. I really liked Green Bay last week against Detroit. So I was not all that surprised. I like the energy that Micah Parsons brought to the Packers. Will have some success moving the ball on the Bears, where perhaps they did not have success moving the ball very, very efficiently against the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned.
And by the way, it's another one that qualifies for a teasing down to pick them from -6.
Yeah, you talked about the Thanksgiving game last year, 23-20. Actually, the past two times Chicago's visited Detroit was Lions 23, Bears 20, and then Lions 31, Bears 26. So the Bears have covered the spread in both those games, and yet Chicago's better now and Detroit's worse.
Yeah, I was just going to say, given those numbers, you could say, how could you take Detroit if laying 6 if the Bears could be competitive there with one of the worst coaches in the last quarter century?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Different coach, different team, different circumstances. And by the way, it's not Thanksgiving yet.
That's true. It looks like the chat is in agreement with you. It looks like everyone likes Detroit. I guess I'm on an island, but
that's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
We'll see what Evan and Tom have to say in the next 2 days. So maybe
I will say Tom will be on the Lions, Evan will be on the Bears.
Okay. Okay, I can see it. I can see
Let's
that.
see how we do on that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next game. We have two more early games. Seahawks at Steelers. This line was Steelers -2.5 on Tuesday. Now it's -3. I really don't have much to say about this game. I'm not big on either team. I'm down on the Steelers. Their defense was atrocious last week. I've never seen a Tomlin defense look that bad. Maybe it's a fluke or something, but I don't know. It was really disturbing. They couldn't stop the run, and now they're going against a Seattle team that runs the ball very well. And then Seattle with Sam Darnold, I don't like him at all. With Minnesota, he had Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson. He doesn't have that in Seattle. All he has is Jackson Smith and Jigba. I don't like the Seattle offensive line either. So these are two teams I want to fade. So they're both playing against each other. I would take the points here if I had to, but luckily, as you say, we don't have to bet every game. So I'm going to pass on this one. Are you betting this one?
I very well might, because I do like Pittsburgh. I like what I saw out of Aaron Rodgers. He's got some nice weapons there. Seattle, for their running game last week, in a competitive game against the 49ers, where they didn't have to abandon the running game, they did run 24 times for barely 3 yards, 3.2, 3.3 yards per carry. So that is a little bit concerning. I'm going to take the Pittsburgh defensive effort last week with a grain of salt and basically say they're better than they showed. We'll find that out again. Maybe they're not. That's why I'm saying maybe last week defensive effort by Pittsburgh, maybe that was their worst game of the year, or more likely, not more likely, but perhaps as likely, maybe it's a typical game we're going to see from them this year. We'll know a little bit more because I guess you could say Seattle's offense, I don't know. Is it any better than the Jets? Probably not. I'd say the Jets might have an advantage with Justin Fields over Sam Darnold. But so we'll learn a little bit more. But I think it's a good spot for Pittsburgh to get a home win, and Seattle gets off to an 0-2 start. Might be competitive. I don't see it Pittsburgh winning at all, but it could be like a 27-20, 27-17 type game.
Yeah, real fast. We talked earlier about early start times for these coaches, and this is a very small sample size. But Mike Macdonald's 2-0 against the spread in the 1 o'clock start times last year.
Who did he play? Now, who did he play last year?
I don't even know. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying that, at least he wasn't 0-2, so that's a little something.
Either one would have mattered. Neither 2-0 nor 0-2 would influence me one way.
Yeah, me neither.
1-9 might, or 9-1 might.
Right. Eventually, when you get a good sample size, that's when it would really impact you. But at the moment, I can't say that it would. So anyway, and I actually think one of those games at the Jets, if I remember correctly. I remember the Seahawks beating the Jets at home last year.
I don't remember.
And the other one was Atlanta. Seahawks destroyed Atlanta, so that was the other one. So neither team made the playoffs, so it's whatever. Anyway, well, not that the Steelers necessarily will. All right, so the final early game is the Niners at the Saints. This line was 7 when Brock Purdy was expected to start. Now it's 3. I couldn't believe this, Andy. When you sent over the Westgate lines, I opened the email.
Oh, the contest lines, yeah.
Yes, I saw a Niners 3, and I'm like, is this a typo? And I'm like, no, it's not.
It's now that I think the quote from Shanahan was that Purdy is a long shot to start in week 2.
Yeah, I don't even care. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Like Purdy's not worth 4 points over Mac Jones. This is Mac Jones, who's a good starter for the Patriots a few years ago.
No, but you combine that with Kittle, and you take out two key players.
Yeah.
You knew you were out with one, so the first is going to be a smaller adjustment. It's kind of like you lose one offensive lineman, it'll be a little bit of an adjustment. You use the second offensive lineman, the adjustment increases. The amount of the adjustment increases.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, they won last week without Kittle for the most part. Kittle played one drive, and they still beat a better Seattle team than the Saints team. The Saints team,
they struggled to beat Seattle though. That's the point.
But Seattle's a lot better than the Saints. So I don't.
Oh, look, the Cardinals struggled to beat the Saints as well last week.
I don't know. They were up by double digits. I think they fell
the game is 60 minutes. Came down to the final play.
I know, but they kind of took their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter. They just didn't. They stopped trying.
Who's Arizona to think that they're that good? They can take the foot off the gas. Come on.
They still won. It worked.
Yeah, I'm saying they still won. Yeah, but I mean, the Saints were not as bad. The Cardinals covered the line by half a point. Okay, so basically
Yeah.
the line was right. But as far as this one goes, Mac Jones at least has some experience. And Purdy, I think, is each year we're finding out that Purdy's a better quarterback than anyone thought when he was Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, well,
the team believes in him.
I remember when Purdy replaced Garoppolo, and we had some very low lines on the Niners. I made huge plays on the Niners in those games.
Yeah.
I think they were against Miami and New England, if I remember correctly. No, Tampa. It was Miami and Tampa. I remember Tom Brady was involved. And the Niners destroyed them. I don't think it matters Mac Jones to Brock Purdy. Like if they were playing a good team, sure. Like if they're playing a team with a great defense, it would matter. But they're playing the Saints, who are awful. I don't care. I mean, this line is 3. I bet the Niners at 6. I love them at 3. Tell me why I'm wrong, please.
Did you bet them at? Did you say you bet them at 6, or you would bet them at 6?
I would bet them at -6. With
you haven't bet them though yet. You didn't bet them yet.
No, I have not.
You okay? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if this is a game I'm going to pass. I mean, by all rights, you should be playing the 49ers in this game at -3. But and this is really, keep in mind, this is an adjustment not by the money. It's by an adjustment by the lines makers. When they heard the news about Purdy, they immediately took the game down. And when they realized that, it's unlikely he's going to start, they immediately put it back up, and they made about a field goal adjustment. So
yeah.
Now, and you wonder, by the way, if that was not perhaps too much of an adjustment, because you go from -6 from a public team like the 49ers to -3. Either the lines makers are saying that Mac Jones doesn't stand a chance, or that the Saints aren't as bad as maybe people thought. I can't play this game, even though I won't say common sense or logic says you play the 49ers. I'm just very suspicious or very concerned about this line move. And it wasn't a line move by money. It was a line move by adjustment. Line adjustment.
Right.
You want to move it down from 4.5 to 4, or maybe even 3.5. Okay. I still would have I'd have less difficulty if they moved it down than to 3.5 or 3.
Yeah, I thought it would be 4.5 with the adjustment. Like I said, I was so shocked when I saw 3. That's crazy to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about this. This seems so easy. Maybe it's too easy. I don't know.
What's Shanahan's record when he heads towards that part of the country?
Okay, early start time.
It's like the Rams going to Tennessee, a Central Time Zone.
Right. He is 9-6 against the spread.
Nothing special.
Yeah.
I mean, let's put it this way: it's not a reason to get on him, but it's certainly not a reason to avoid playing him. It's not an unfavorable spot.
Right. Okay, so we get to the late games here. Panthers at the Cardinals. This line is Cardinals -6.5. It opened 4.5. I said this last week when I picked Arizona. Arizona sits on bad teams. That's what they do. They went 7-1 against bad teams last year. They beat and covered the Saints in week 1. So now 8-1 dating back to last year. I just think that Arizona is just much better than Carolina. And I remember on last week's show, I called them the Carolina the hipster pick, because everyone's like, oh my God, they kept games close against the Chiefs and the Eagles and the Buccaneers. They must be good. Well, they didn't win those games, and those teams didn't try. So it's not a surprise that the teams struggle so much. Their defense is awful. Bryce Young still can't see over the line of scrimmage, and they have an injury at left tackle. I think Arizona is a better team. I wish this was still 4.5. I still like them at 6.5, but we lost a little line value here. So I'm still going to be on Arizona. What do you think about this game?
Well, I like him at 6.5 because now I don't have to tease him across 0.
That's true.
I can tease him down from -6.5 to -0.5. If I had to play the game even at 6.5, I would prefer Arizona.
Okay. Glad we're on the same side there.
But I will say that when I put it in my 4 categories, that's a weak opinion.
Weak opinion. Okay. Okay. All right. Now we get to the big game of the year. It is Broncos at Colts. And you guys know what time it is. It is the Battle of the Horses. The Broncos are -1.5. They were -3.5 to open. This line is like falling. My hat's on, like all weird. It is the Battle of Horses. Forget this hat. I'll figure it out Thursday, Friday. The Broncos Colts. Broncos are favored by 1.5. To me, I wish it was still 3.5. Because I like the Colts at +3.5. Now 1.5 is tough ask you to get the 3.
And I'm showing 1 across Las Vegas, by the way. -1 on the Broncos.
Oh, interesting. There's no 1 online, so that's kind of strange. No, I don't know. So on one hand, we lose line value, and I don't really want to overreact to what the Colts did because they played such a bad Miami team. On the other hand, if you back Denver, you're backing yet another coach who always struggles in weeks 1 and 2. Sean Payton is since he came back from Bounty Gate suspension, 3-19-1 against the spread in weeks 1 and 2. That is awful. How
many of those games were like in the -2 to +2 range? Basically, pickup games.
Yeah, I could look that up. But
I think you last week, I think we talked about it. I think his straight up record was better, meaning that he was laying some points and just not covering in wins.
Right. I'll look it up, but I don't know. It's just I just don't want to stand in front of that train. Like why do it? Like
which train?
Why stand?
Which train? The Sean Payton train?
Yeah, the 3-19-1 train. Like I don't.
But the 3-19-1. The 3-19-1 again, he doesn't care about covering the game. He cares about winning. Well, when you're talking about -1, you care about winning.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the key. To me, that's the key. That's why I'm asking about these smaller. And I should say when he's favored, let's say by 2 or less, 2 or 1 or 1.5.
Well, let's do less than 3. Man, hold on, I gotta log into this stupid thing. While I look that up, what's your take in this game?
I like Denver. I just think they're fundamentally the better team. I do like what I said. I think we may have said it off the air. Maybe we said it while we're recording. I do like what Warren showed for Indianapolis, and Denver will be game planning for him. Daniel Jones had a very good game, but he had a few good games with the Giants as well. Remember the year they made the playoffs, so certainly the change of scenery has been good. It's lessened the pressure on him, and it was an emotional game for the Colts last week, wanting to win in honor of in the memory of Bob Irsay or Jim Irsay, I guess. Yeah. Bob was the crazy dad, but nonetheless, I just think Denver's defense is legit. I can't take anything away from last week's game against Tennessee. They were clearly a better team, but to their credit, Tennessee did make it a little bit difficult for Denver. Just looking at the numbers, although Denver actually had a fairly well-balanced offense. In fact, they ran for 151 yards on 30 carries. That's 5 yards per carry. That's very impressive against any professional football team. And they held the Titans about 3.5 yards. They didn't have to pass for a lot of yards, 25 for 40 for just 166. But Knicks did have those 2 interceptions, which may have prevented some additional points from being on the board. So I like this Denver team. I think that they made strides in Peyton's second year with Denver, and his belief in the rookie quarterback that had Knicks drafted a lot earlier than a lot of people expected. And Peyton, at least for that 1 year, was proven correct. And you'd expect to see a little bit more improvement this year. I think Indianapolis is a team that's going to be better than I thought they were going to be. But again, it's just based on one game against, as you said, and I sort of have to agree, a lousy Miami team.
I have the answer. Unfortunately, it's a small sample size. Sean Payton's been a favorite of less than 3 twice in weeks 1 and 2. And he lost both times straight up.
Okay. Home or road, does it say?
Yes. At Atlanta, he lost in 2014, and then at home against the Raiders, he lost.
Okay. Small sample, but right. Yeah, if you needed additional support for playing against Denver, not on Indianapolis, if you want to play against, maybe you could point to that a little bit. That Peyton, takes an ease in. When he was in the Big Easy, he took an easy approach to the start of the season.
Yeah, and he's still doing that in Denver. Apparently, I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. At least like with Zach Taylor, you can say, okay, bad coach, but Sean Payton is a good coach. I don't really don't understand why he's such a slow starter, but like I said, I don't want to stand in front of that train. I don't want to be on the train tracks when that happens. Yeah, you might not get hit by the train, but like, why would you stand on the train track?
No, and sometimes I'll take a look at it where I say, well, okay, let me ask you this question: will you be on Indianapolis or just not play the game?
I won't be playing the game.
Okay,
I know it is. Look,
because if you played, if you played Indianapolis because of Peyton's poor record and Peyton wins, the thought might be, well, I went on this 3-19 trend, but I know that Denver's the better team and I should have stayed away from the game. The fact that you're staying away from the game is, I think, a smart decision, given the fact that you really want a reason to play against the 3-19 team, but you can't really find it fundamentally.
Yeah, look, like I said, when this was 3.5, I thought, okay, maybe Colts, because we get the 3, and given Denver's slow starts, like it made sense. But now at 1.5, there's just way too much of an adjustment, and really, it's the margins are so tight. Like either the Colts win or have to lose by 1 for you to win this game. It's tough, and I don't want to overreact to what is that?
No, sorry. Is it possible the Colts can have a letdown after that big win last week, which was a surprise considering it was a pickup game, and might Denver be a little bit more focused considering the struggles they had in a game that they figured to win rather easily?
Lanny, it's the Battle of the Horses. It's the biggest game of the year. I don't know how you can't have a letdown. Battle of the Horses.
For Stables, it is, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
no, but I'm saying, is it a game that the Broncos could take a little bit more seriously on? Well, I mentioned one reason. Their struggles last week against a rookie quarterback and a team they were expected to be. Now, they came within a half point of covering, but it shouldn't have come down to that. And at the same time, might the Colts be a little bit flat given the emotional impact of last week's game, birth from the Irsay thing, which was a big deal, and the fact that they won a lot easier. Maybe they're thinking a little bit better than they are, and they're going to face a team that is going to take this game perhaps more seriously than if the scores of these two teams last week were reversed, and Denver won 33-8, and the Colts won 20-12.
Yeah, to really answer your question, I don't think the Colts will have a letdown because they are underdogs here, and they got blown out at Denver last year. Now it was a close game for a while, and it was the game where Taylor dropped the ball shy of the goal line, and had he not done that, I think the Colts may have at least
that's another reason for Peyton to say, guys, hey, wake up, be focused. Because I think Denver plays. Yeah. I think Denver does play the Chargers the following week.
Yes, they do. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, but I think Andy got disconnected again. I think, but are you still there? You're still there.
I'm there.
I don't see your picture. But okay. Well, anyway, so. We come off the highs of the Battle of Horses, and we have to talk about the sex game, the Eagles, Chiefs, whatever. So this looks like to me public on Kansas City, sharp money on Philadelphia. Well, now Andy's gone for sure. Andy's gone. I'll take off this hat. To me, here's Andy.
I had to reconnect because the audio was low on my end.
Okay. All right. So. What I was saying before, it looks like public money in Kansas City, sharp money on Philadelphia. The line moved. Kansas City was favored by 1.5. Now Philadelphia is favored by 1 or 1.5.
When was Kansas City favored by 1.5?
When they had opened, Kansas City was -1.5 to open.
Oh, on Sunday, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I show it opening at Pick at a lot of places, and I show it opening either side 1 at a couple of places.
Yeah.
Pinnacle shows the Chiefs opening 1 + 109. I'm sorry, Kansas City opened at Pinnacle 1.5 -05. Now it's up to -1 + 09. So money on Philly.
Yeah. I think FanDuel had -1.5, but whatever. I think I like Kansas City here. I'm having trouble handicapping this game. This could be one to just sit back and watch and have fun. But this is just so tight because I think Philadelphia is a better team. However, Kansas City, having the Super Bowl revenge. Andy Reid has circled this game. I'm not like a huge revenge guy,
I
but
think he circled this game on the podium of the Super Bowl because they knew already. They didn't know when they were going to play, but they
right.
knew they were going to be hosting the Eagles. So I think on his way up to the podium, he took a big circle on this game.
Yeah, so he's been preparing for this game for 7 months. And so is Mahomes.
He's coming off a divisional loss.
Yeah. Mahomes coming off a loss. I think anytime you get an elite quarterback coming off a loss, it's very appealing unless they're huge favorites. I'm going to be on Kansas City, I think, but I think the Eagles could be the better team. Although they had issues stopping Dallas. I know Jalen Carter was out. I mean, that made a huge difference, and he's going to play in this game. But I think what Kansas City showed in the second half, like once they made the adjustment for Worthy not being there, that showed something to me offensively. Now their defense looked very bad, and I think this could be a good game for AJ Brown to bounce back. And Kansas City plays a lot of man, so that's really going to benefit Brown here. But I still like Kansas City here. And the one thing I like here is that, and we saw this in the Super Bowl, not that it mattered because they lost, but they're really good against the run. And so they can at least stop Saquon Barkley. And so maybe with Josh Simmons at left tackle instead of Tooney, maybe they'll have a better chance of blocking the Eagles. And the Eagles also don't have Josh Sweat anymore. So it feels like they're closer than what they were last year. So, and plus Kansas City is at home. So I'm going to be on Kansas City. What do you think about this game?
I think my favorite game of the week. And I'm also on the Chiefs.
Like? Okay.
I like the Chiefs. Yeah. A number of things. This team was embarrassed on the biggest stage in all of sports. And it doesn't, I thought Philadelphia was a better team going in, but I didn't think they were, 34-0, 40-6 better than the Eagles. And so they got embarrassed. They've had the entire offseason to stew and point towards this game. I don't think it had anything to do with the game in Brazil. Now, it's interesting because if this game were being played in November instead of September, I might strongly consider Philadelphia because I think the Chiefs are an aging team. Right now, they're fresh. November, they're not so fresh. So I think that this is the right time for the Chiefs to play well. Would I be surprised if the Eagles win again? No, of course not. I mean, look, they nearly won the first time they made in the Super Bowl. What was that, 38-35? Because they allowed Mahomes time. And then, of course, they won last February with a much easier effort that I think surprised a lot of people. And really, that's all Mahomes was talking about all season. That he can't wait for the season to start. And I don't think he was talking necessarily. I think he was talking about this season because of all the close struggles that they had last year. And we saw him hook up with Kelsey a couple of times against the Chargers, and there were some big plays. But I don't know if I alluded to it. It may have been while we were talking before we started recording, and that is that Philadelphia, aside from being without Carter, did show some defensive vulnerabilities due to some losses in personnel. At the same time, I can't remember a Spagnuolo defense being ripped apart like the Eagles ripped them in the Super Bowl, and the way the Chargers did for a good part of the game against the Chiefs last week. So in addition to playing the Chiefs, I'm going to look for this one to go over. I think the total is, let me see, I think it's about 40. I think it's about 40, 47, 48.
Okay.
See. Let me check on that very quickly. This game is 40. I'm seeing pretty much solid 47s on this game. A couple of 46 and a halves.
Okay. I'm glad we're on the same side. It makes sense to be, but I'm not as big on this one as you are. But how weird is it that both Spagnuolo and Tomlin's defenses were both shredded in week one? Yeah. It's very, very weird. So let's
against
see.
Teams that were decent but not outstanding offensively.
Right.
Chargers led the league, I think, in fewest points allowed last year. They were maybe slightly above average offensively. The Jets, of course, were nowhere close to that.
Yeah, and the Chargers lost Joey Bosa too. You thought that, you thought at least they take a step backward. We have a question here about the top 5 most publicly bet teams this week. Right now, I'm showing Vikings, Chiefs, Steelers, Titans, and Saints right now.
Titans and Saints.
Yeah, they're both public dogs. Huh?
I can understand the Titans.
Yeah.
I cannot know how much of that money came in on the Saints before the line moved.
And maybe that's why it's 3, because the public likes the Saints.
Well, I think it was an adjustment, but there was word after the game. It didn't take long. We knew Kittle was going to be. Well, he was put on IR a couple of days ago. I think it was. Maybe it was yesterday. Today's Wednesday. Yeah, but we knew he was injured because he exited early and didn't come back. We also knew after the game that Purdy had 2 injuries to deal with. What I think his shoulder and his toe, I believe. So maybe that's what caused some of the early money. Because I think I saw. Let me go back here and pull my screen up. And I saw that the 49ers opened 7.5, 6.5, 6, and 7.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday night.
Yeah.
So,
well, Jalen Carter spit on Mahomes.
which, by the way, if you look at those opening lines, they're saying the 49ers are a half point better than the Cardinals, who are favored by 6.5 at the same venue against the same team.
Yeah, and that didn't make sense to me either. I think the Niners are better than much better.
I don't know how much better, but a field goal better, maybe a little under a field goal.
Yeah, I thought 2 to 3 points. Yeah, that didn't make sense at all. So, yeah. Anyway, all right. So we have Sunday night game and then 2 Monday night games. The Falcons at the Vikings. This line was Vikings -4.5. It's dropped to 3.5. There is news that we have to await on Drake London. He's day to day. If he's out, there's a potential that Atlanta's going to be down its top 2 receivers because Darnell Mooney was also out last week. So that's something to watch out for. Minnesota playing on a short week. And as you said before, it's better if it's a familiar opponent, but this is not a familiar opponent. It's out of the division.
Not only that, it's also better that it's at home because they don't have the day of travel that Atlanta will have.
Right. Although they do have to travel back from Chicago, so that's something.
That's all factored into the shorter rest period.
Yeah.
But they make up for it later in the week by having more practice time. They're practicing or walking through or doing a little bit of both while Atlanta's sitting there listening to their songs with their headsets.
Mm-hmm.
Playing.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be on it, Atlanta. This is a very tough game for me. If Drake London's out, I think I would switch to Minnesota. As it stands now, I would take the 3.5 with the hook. If Minnesota had a full week of preparation, I could maybe talk myself into Minnesota. But the lack of full week is going to be a factor here. I think the quarterback they're not familiar with. They've never seen Michael Penix Jr. in person. And Atlanta, even though they lost last week, they should have won, or at least easily could have won. They outgained Tampa by about 100 yards, and I think they averaged like 0.2 more yards per play. So I thought they were the better team, but they just screwed up at the end. The missed field goal, and also Kadera Hodge not looking for the ball in the end zone. But like I said, if London's out, then I'm kind of going to go back to Minnesota. So what do you think?
Not a strong opinion on this one, but I do prefer Minnesota. I like what we saw in the second half out of McCarthy. You heard the story about what happened at halftime. Coach goes to him and says, you're going to come back and win this game for us. And I think that gave him a lot of confidence, especially when he pulled it off. And I think the team really responds well to McCarthy, and I think that momentum carries over. Is McCarthy a better quarterback than Penix Jr.? Hard to say. Penix Jr. does have a lot of experience. He did play well for the Falcons last year. At 3.5, maybe I buy it down to 3 and play on the Vikings. They get a second straight Monday night, primetime game after being on Monday night. And I think they go into this game. It'll be the first game with the quarterback at home, so the fans have reasons to be excited, given the fact that they're off that comeback, come from behind win against a division rival. I'm looking at what Atlanta did last week, and Tampa Bay's a decent team, but they held them to about 2.5 yards per rush. They ran 28 times for 69 yards. They threw the ball 48 times, completed 27 for 289 yards. You would have thought they might have gotten a few more points. And of course, Atlanta was fortunate to be in a situation of tying the game because Tampa Bay missed that extra point, or they would have been up 24-17 going into the 24-20 instead of 23-20, so it could have tied. So I thought that was Atlanta's game to win. I'm not surprised that Tampa Bay won because they are a good team, 4-time defending division champion. But I thought Atlanta put a lot into last week's game. They were a very popularly bet team, played team in all the contests. They were not played very heavily in the Survivor contest, but that makes sense because it was such a close competitively priced game between division rivals. But the thought was that they put a lot into that game with a lot of excitement for the season that they seem to have had. In fact, I remember last year they had that game against Pittsburgh an opening day. I think it was like 20-18 they won or something like that. But nonetheless, I like this Minnesota team. People forget this team. What they have double-digit wins in 2022 and double-digit wins last year, and the fluke year. Well, 2022 was sort of a fluke because they won all those one-score games, but which reversed itself somewhat. I think they went 7-10 in 2023, but they came back and won a lot better last year. So I think this Minnesota team is a team that's continuing to improve, and I like the fact that they got Thielen back, that they reunited with him, which gives them another. I imagine what this team's going to be when Addison gets back in a couple of weeks. So I like Minnesota. I think with that line coming down now, Minnesota's worth a play, and if it doesn't go down to 3, I'll buy it down to 3.
Yeah, and not just Addison back, but they could get Christian Darrisaw back too.
Yeah.
He was out last week, and I thought that made a big difference in the first half. Just him not being there, they had issues blocking on the blind side. So he practiced fully twice last week, so I don't think he's that far away from returning. Yeah, I don't think he's that far from returning. So that's going to be a huge boon for them. All right,
I think he might have been able to return, but you had a quarterback making his first start. Let's see how his replacement plays. And that means maybe we can rest him a little bit longer, or maybe we'll need to get him in. I think after the results of last week, they could get by without him, but they'd probably rather start him if he's fully healthy.
Yeah. All right, we had two Monday night games. Buccaneers at Texans is the first one. Texans are -2.5. They open 1.5. I like Houston a little bit here. You know, anytime you get an NFC South team out of the division, you really have to consider fading them, because what happens is they build up the record by battling each other. You know, like they beat Atlanta last week, so now Tampa is looking good at 1-0. And so this tends to happen where when they get out of the division, they tend to struggle, because I think people kind of forget how bad.
What about AFC South teams out of the division?
It's pretty close. I think if you look at and I actually looked this up last year. I don't have
for the last 2 or 3 years, these have been the two worst divisions in football, and pretty much close to each other in non-division games.
Yeah. That is true, although Houston has been a pretty decent team in the past few years. So Tampa. But I don't like when Tampa had Brady. Yes, I just don't think that they're as good. I know that you were on a show with on Proline, and someone said that Tampa's like the Rodney Dangerfield of the NFL. I don't know who it was. Was it Feist?
Jim. I think it was Jim Feist. Yeah. I think he likes Tampa Bay this year to win the Super Bowl. I think he's got some tickets.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
And I can understand that this is a fundamentally solid team that plays good defense with an experienced head coach who has had a time around the league. And yeah, they play in a weak division, but they if they were 10-7 last year, and I don't know what their division record was. But even if they went 4-2 to division, that means they still won like 6 non-division games. It's not a great record for a division winner, but they do have that pedigree now.
Yeah, it's true. By the way, this is very ugly, this number, and I'm going to look at the counterpart number here. But are you ready for how NFC South teams have done out of the division since 2022? They are okay. Here's the numbers. They are 53-84 against the spread. Oh, Andy's not even here. I had this great number, and it's popped off the screen. So I'll have to impress him with this number when he comes on. But no, here it comes. Are you there?
I have to adjust my setting again because of the USB thing keeps falling out.
Okay, good. All right, I have the numbers for you. NFC South teams outside of the division since 2022, they are 53-84 against the spread. So that is 38.7% covering rate. Now you asked, what is the AFC South outside of the division? Well, Andy's not on again. I keep teasing this number. I'll tell you guys. The AFC South outside of the division is 66-73 against the spread in that same time span. So the NFC South is much worse than the AFC South outside of the division. So not that it's like a huge deal. I just think that like anytime you get the NFC South teams outside of the division, you kind of have to factor that in. And so and I also love Houston's defense. Now their offensive line sucks. That's definitely true. But I don't know if Tampa has, outside of Vita Vea, I don't know if they have the horses to get to the Texans, to get to CJ Stroud. I know they have Hassan Reddick now, but I mean, he's past his prime, So I like Houston. I'm getting a text. I assume it's from Andy. He probably says he can't get back on because he's not coming on. Oh, wait. No, he's not on. Hold on. Andy is saying you need to let me back in the studio. But I'm not. I don't see him popping up. Let me see. Hold on a second, guys. Oh wait, no, he disappeared again. Okay, I don't. Yeah, I just don't want to see him popping up. So, Darius saw injury to follow for Minnesota in week 2. Yeah, I'm very curious if Darisaw can play for Minnesota. That could sway me. Oh wait, here we go. He's coming. There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
I was saying you needed to. I said it was backstage, so I figured that's what it was. No, in fact, I guessed that. I didn't hear the other part, but I guessed that it would be about 35% for the NFC South. What'd you say it was? I think you said 38%. What was it for the AFC South?
Yeah, so NFC South 53 and 84 against the spread. AFC South out of the division 66 and 73 against the spread. 47.5%.
That's because you had a few good years from Jacksonville as well.
Yeah, Jacksonville, Houston. Yeah, you've had some good teams for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I was saying before in the chat, I like Houston here. I like that their defense is great. I think they have the best. Their defense, I think, is the best unit in this game. And as bad as their offensive line is, and it's a huge concern, I don't think Tampa, outside of Vita Vea, can cause problems for them. So I like Houston here. What are your thoughts on this game?
Not a strong opinion, but I kind of like Tampa Bay. Again, they've won with great consistency over the years. They held the Atlanta running game down last week. As far as Houston, of course, they also held the Rams down to under 3 yards per carry, and they didn't do all that well themselves. They only had 265 yards of total offense, which is about what Tampa Bay had in their win at Atlanta. So this is a game. I do like Tampa Bay. I wouldn't be surprised by the upset, but I will probably include them in one of the underdog teasers and tease them up to 8.5.
Okay. All right, and then we get to the final game, Chargers at the Raiders. I love these 10 o'clock Monday night games.
I love these doubleheaders. Yeah, I hated when it was like 6 and 7 Eastern. It used to be.
Yeah. 7 and 8 o'clock. Why are they doing that? Like 7:30. Make it 7 and 10. Make it the second game, a West Coast game. I love it. It's my favorite thing.
I would almost rather have them have Monday night doubleheaders for the first half of the season and do away with the Thursday night game where teams are playing on 4 days rest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think you can do away with that. And if you want Thursday games late in the year, you could even have I think Thursday games should always be with teams coming off buys. And
yes.
when you have 4 or 6 teams coming off buys, you could maybe even have a doubleheader on Thursday if all 4 teams are coming off buys.
And by the way, I would also like to see I would like the perfect world, and who the hell's the NFL to listen to me? It just makes too much sense. Okay. Number one, you always have teams playing on Thursday off of buys, but number 2, you have 4 buys a week over 8 weeks, and the 4 buys all go to the same division.
Yeah, I think that's a logical thing.
They'll never adopt that. That's why.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care about the player safety. They say they do, but how do you play 2 games in 4 days in football?
Well, not only that, if you care about player safety, why would you even think of adding an 18th game?
Right, or a 17th game.
Back then, yeah.
Yeah, I thought the 16.
They had no problem with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought 16 games so.
And by the way, a note to the players' union, and I insist that you do this when you're in negotiations. When ultimately you go to an 18th game, each team gets 2 buys a season.
Yeah, they tried that one in '93. They didn't like
90.
Yeah, but I think they had fewer teams back then. And
not many fewer. I think they had 28.
Yeah, it's still significant. So I think that
it's only 4 teams less.
Right, but that's 2 more games each week that you have during those double bye weeks. So I agree. I totally agree with that. I think that 2 bye weeks make sense, and then it makes the Thursday games easier to schedule. So we're completely in agreement here. But anyway, with this game, Chargers at the Raiders, this line is 3.5. But there is a -3, -120 in FanDuel right now. So if you like the Chargers, I would consider betting that right now. I do like the Chargers at 3. At 3.5 is it's kind of shaky. Although the fact that they went from 3 to 3.5, it's a sign of strength here for the Chargers. Kind of like last week when Jacksonville was a -3 against Carolina, and then they went to 3.5. Ultimately, they think it closed at 4.5, I believe. Maybe the same thing happens here, but I said before, I like the Raiders. I think they're better than people think. But I think the Chargers have a potential to be a special team with Justin Herbert really taking a step up. I mean, he shredded Kansas City, and maybe Kansas City's defense is not that bad. Maybe Justin Herbert is that special now that he has
that. That's where the questions about week number 1 come in, because we don't know. Because I had the same concern. We don't know if Kansas City's defense is slipping because they're very uncharacteristic of a Spagnuolo defense. At the same time, year number 2 under Harbaugh.
Yeah, year number 2 in the Harbaugh. Justin Herbert has gotten a lot of criticism for not stepping up in big games. Well, he did last week, and I think now with Harbaugh in his second year, there is a lot of potential for Herbert to make a big run. Even though their left tackle is out for the year. I almost said Joe Alt, but he's now he's the new left tackle. Their other,
which he played at Notre Dame and played very well that position.
Rashawn Slater is out for the year. So, so like I said, 3.5 is tougher pill to swallow here, but I still would side with the Chargers just because I think they could be a special team this year. Now they're coming off a big win in Brazil against Kansas City. Maybe there's a letdown, but it's a Monday night game. I don't think so.
And it's a divisional game.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you can steal a divisional game on the road, because remember, the divisional game win against Kansas City was a home game for the Chargers. That was played at the neutral site. So now they have an opportunity to pick up a road win against a division rival. And you see of the, now 2 road wins that they could have, because they could also win. They could have 3, because they could win in Kansas City and Denver, but winning at the Raiders is the easiest of the 3.
Yeah, so
puts a little pressure. Yeah. And by the way, puts a little pressure on Kansas City, who will be playing the day before. Now I have the Chiefs winning that game, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles win the game. And now all of a sudden the Chiefs are 0-2 and the Chargers are 2-0.
Yeah,
and both of those 2 wins would be against division rivals.
Yeah, it's true. The Chargers are the one team I don't have in my exactas, and I'm pretty concerned that I don't. But anyway, I like the Chargers here. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I do as well. It's as much as I would like to see the Raiders, I would not consider teasing them up to a 9.5. Although Pete Carroll's a good coach, and he knows that he's got the second best talent in this game. I don't know if he thought he had this. I don't know that the Chargers thought they were the second best talent to Kansas City, but I think here it's clear that the Chargers have the better talent, and Pete Carroll might design some plays. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot of Genti in this game to keep the ball out of Herbert's hands and try and make it a competitive game. So maybe we see a little bit of a lower scoring game, although I could see both teams with the quarterbacks being able to put points up in this one. So if I can't find the 3, I'll buy at the 3, much like I said with one of those other games. Maybe it was the Vikings game that I would buy it down to 3.
Okay.
This would be another one.
I like I said, right now on FanDuel, it is, and I know you don't have access to it in Las Vegas, but right now on FanDuel, it is -3, -120. So that is something to consider if you want to lock that in. So, and Andy, you said your top plays. You said Chiefs, your top play. Yeah. Any other huge plays that you like?
Again, I like the Dolphins. I know that you hate them, and I can understand why. I just think it may not be a very good season, but this team has rebounded in the past. But I think right now the coach is coaching with his job on the line. Maybe he doesn't want to coach anymore and he wants to lose. I doubt that's the case, but the fans certainly want that. But I mean, I think that look, I don't know if you would agree, but I think the Dolphins have more talent than a 25-point loss at Indianapolis suggests.
I don't know. They're like, their offensive line is so bad and their secondary is so bad. Like,
you just take the entire roster with the playmakers. It only takes one snapper to be a big play. They can get a lot of big plays.
Hill hasn't done anything in a calendar year. Waddle, I think, is
Yeah.
overrated. I love
He's been
Achan.
injured, yeah.
Yeah, I
But
love
I
Achan.
think that I think the Dolphins have enough talent that remember this again. This is a team, and you had a lot of those issues they had last year, maybe different players, but they still won 9 games. Okay, so
Yeah.
I mean the talent is there. Okay, I mean the Colts also won 9 games last year, so I mean you're basically looking at 2 teams, and the game was priced accordingly. But I think ownership has to feel that if the Dolphins don't get a win this week, and you're basically saying a win equals a cover at this point spread, doesn't necessarily have to be it, but the percentages are extremely high that a Dolphin win at this point spread is a cover, that the owner might just say, we've got more talent. We want to save any semblance we have of our season. Realistic or not, in the eyes of you and many other people, that's not the way owners think. They may just go ahead and make a change. And I think the coach knows that. And I don't know. Maybe you know. Do you think that the locker room is united there, or are there fractions there?
I don't think they are. I was thinking about it in my head, like, where else do I think it? But I'm going by position with these 2 teams, the Patriots and Dolphins.
No, I'm just talking about the talent overall, the overall talent.
I don't think it's there. Like yeah, they won 9 games last year, but they don't have Taron Armstead anymore. He's gone.
Yeah, but they got other
Jalen
players.
Ramsey,
Other players.
Smith.
Yeah. Well, they got Fitzpatrick, who's a decent player.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't that good last year. I mean, I don't know. They had their offensive line is so bad. They can't protect at all. And I don't think Tua is mentally there. I think he's kind of like
he's frustrated.
I don't think
with the offensive line and the coach.
I think it's like mentally gone, I think is how I would describe
it.
Not
in week 2.
No,
October,
not mentally checked down. I think mentally gone, as in his brain's not functioning correctly.
Oh, maybe that's the concussions, if that's what you think.
Yeah,
it could be the concussions.
I think it really is.
Well, then I'm surprised then he shouldn't be medically cleared to play.
No, he shouldn't be. His family should be like, hey, you need to step away, because he has one more concussion. Like
that's it.
Forget his career.
His life.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
He's already probably got the early stages of CTE with the concussions and the way that they've been happening to him.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is concern there, but no, I do like the Dolphins this week. But I mean, this game, because the Patriots are a beatable team. Okay,
yeah,
and the line says that. And if they can't win this home game against a division rival after being embarrassed last week, this is a team that you're going to have to really find a good reason to play on them the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I think that would be a McDaniel firing.
Yeah.
Or Tua benching or something.
It might be one of those strategies in Survivor where you play whoever Miami's playing that week.
So would you? I know you wouldn't back.
No, I wouldn't do it this week. No.
Well, what if the inverse of this matchup, Miami at New England? Would you take New England there
in this week?
Well, I'm saying down the road.
No. I'm talking about this week, because they're both 0-1 and in need of a win. Right. But the Patriots were much more competitive. If they were hosting this game, they would probably be priced in the line of what they were against the Raiders. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit higher now, given what we saw last week from Miami versus what we saw from the Raiders.
Yeah. Are you? Do you want to talk about your Survivor, or do you want to keep that quiet?
No, I haven't decided yet. I mean, my initial thought is the obvious, the Ravens.
The Ravens, yeah.
But they do play on Thanksgiving, so
right.
Maybe it's Christmas that they play on. I think they host Cincinnati on one of those 2 holidays.
It's on Thanksgiving, yeah. It's Thanksgiving.
And that's when I'm looking to play them, because it'll be the first meeting of the 2 teams this year.
Yeah, I think
they play again in December.
Yeah, the 2 Thanksgiving ones, like Chiefs at Cowboys and Ravens versus Bengals are like the only 2 ones there. And then you have the Eagles versus Bears too.
On Friday, yeah.
Right. So you have some good options. For me in Survivor, I think I'm going with Arizona against the Panthers. Just because I want to maybe say Baltimore for Thanksgiving. I just want to keep that option open,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who I'd be looking for. I'd probably be looking for the Eagles on Friday against the Bears.
Yeah. I could definitely see that too.
Only because Cincinnati has an offense, Baltimore we don't know about their defense, and it's a divisional game, and it's their first meeting of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, plus those games are always close too. So, all right, great show, Andy. Always love having you on. You provide an amazing insight.
And by the way, I might also go with the Steelers. That's another one to take a look at.
Okay,
against Seattle.
Interesting. I'm not nearly as confident in that one. Yeah, Indianapolis corner said take away.
I would know. I would. What's that? Oh, cornerback said.
Yeah, the Colts cornerback said take away Tua's first read, and he goes in panic.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I forget who it was on the Colts who made that comment after the game. He said we knew that Tua was going to freak out after his first read of the first play of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and pretty much happened. But no, with what are we talking about here? Pittsburgh. I have to believe Tomlin was in every defensive player's face this week during practice.
Yeah, I think so.
Excuse me. Whether it translates to success on the field, I don't know.
We'll see. That's a team I
Rodgers
just don't know
over Darnold.
Yeah. I mean,
well, again, we don't know about. We probably don't know about 27 of the 32 teams based upon what we saw week one. Every team has questions. Very few teams. The one team that maybe really exceeded expectations were the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now obviously you take into account the, and we don't know. Like I said, is this Miami's typical performance this year? We don't know. What if Miami goes out this week and beats the Patriots 28-13?
Yeah.
Now,
we'll see.
One thing. Well, no, exactly. But what it might also do is that if indeed that happens, and let's say Indianapolis upsets the Broncos, that might make Indianapolis's win against the Dolphins in week one even more impressive. Because the Dolphins rebounded and shown that maybe that week one performance indeed was a fluke, maybe not being prepared for this, whatever it was. That's why week one rarely answers questions. It only raises questions. Some positive, some negative.
Yeah,
we'll get some answers in week two, but we'll also get more questions.
Yeah, we don't have all the data yet, for sure. I mean, we'll learn more and more as the season progresses. So and I always say that like everything makes sense eventually. You'll be shocked by a result, but then 8 weeks down the road, you're like, oh, okay, I see why that happened.
Yeah, but you know what? We won't be able to see 8 weeks down the road or after the season. In many cases,
what's that?
I should have seen this coming.
Sure,
very few people will be able to say that maybe about one or two teams. I mean, for example, if Kansas City did not make the playoffs this year, I wouldn't be shocked. For you, it's if Detroit didn't make the playoffs this year, you wouldn't be shocked.
Right.
Because I had a sense that might happen. And I'm the same thing with the age with Kansas City. I mean, they've won 7 or 8 division titles in a row. Mm-hmm. That takes a toll. I think they played. I think we talked last week. They played 21 playoff games since 2019. That's the equivalent of a season and a quarter. Well, most teams were playing 6 seasons and a couple of games. They were playing a full extra season. That takes a toll after a while. And that's why I'm thinking that over the second half of the season. Number one, I think it was evident last year when Kansas City struggled to win so many close games.
Mm-hmm.
This year, they may not win all those close games once we get into November.
Yeah. We'll see. I think they are better this year, but they're going. Well,
they may have better personnel in some areas, but some of their key personnel who have been with them, both offensive and defensive players during this 6-7 year run, they're a year older.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And I Rashi Rice coming back was definitely going to help. We have one question before we head out. Half PPR start 2 receivers in a flex. I see Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr., Ibuka, Debo, Sutton, Breece Hall, ATN. It's a great roster there. I think I would love to have Breece Hall.
That's the first name came to mind.
Yeah, I'd love to have Breece Hall in there. Brian Thomas Jr. against Cincinnati. That's a fantastic matchup. And then you have Marvin Harrison Jr. against Carolina. I think I'd go with those 3. ATN is close, though, because that's also against Cincinnati. But I don't want to start 2 players from the same team. So that is my response. I do like Sutton a lot, too. I love Ibuka, but not so much against Houston. So
the other thing to look at a little bit more deeply is look at which games have the highest totals on our passing teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You could do that as well. All right, Andy.
Which favorites have the highest totals?
Right,
For the most
exactly.
part.
Yeah, Andy, great to have you on. Do you want to talk about the logicalapproach.com or your newsletter? And either way, I urge everyone to sign up for Andy's newsletter, which you can do on the site.
Yeah, let's go take a look. You can see what the format is from issues from last year. We do 3 different newsletters. One's a trends and tendencies, which looks strictly at, and the way I phrase it, in fact, let me read the way that I say it, because a lot of people don't look at trends the way that I necessarily do. And the way, and I introduce each issue with this, is that these selections answer the question based upon the public's perception of both teams over the past several seasons, which team is better situated to exceed public expectations. And by that, I mean, let's say the Cincinnati Bengals are 15-6 in a certain situation. Doesn't mean that the Bengals are 15-6. It means that the public underestimated Cincinnati in 15 of 21 games because Cincinnati did better than the public expected. In other words, they were laying 9 and they won by 11. They were getting 6 and they won the game outright or lost by 3. That's how I describe that. And then I've got one strictly devoted to NFL teasers based upon some mathematical things that I've used over the years to come up with the teams that are playable in teasers. Now, a lot of people don't really need the teaser newsletter anymore, although it is instructive, because now the basic situation is in teasers is, look to cover the 3, 4, 7, and 8 in each direction,
Right.
and you'll get plenty of opportunities. And based upon the nature of the game, going from +2, which is a competitive game, to +8, which is a little bit less competitive. The games are generally more competitive, and the success rate is pretty high. And I take a look at that during the course of the season. And then there's a regular college and pro football newsletter where I write up 4 games and in college and 4 in the pros, and I give opinions, either solid opinion or playable opinions, or weak opinions, which are leans, so you to do so that at least everyone has some idea of what I'm thinking on each game.
Yeah.
So that's www. Of course, we don't even need to say that anymore. But I like speaking, so I'll get the extra syllables in there. TheLogicalApproach.com.
Yeah, guys, check out thelogicalapproach.com. Sign up for Andy's newsletter. It's amazing stuff in there. There's so much information. So if you're looking for more of an edge, definitely do that. And visit walterfootball.com with tons of content as always. So, all right, Andy, great to have you on again. I'm looking forward to next week. We'll talk to see if the schedule lines up. But yeah, hopefully
it should going forward. Now, Wednesday nights are generally going to be good nights for me.
Okay. All right. Good to hear. We mixed up the schedule for everyone, but I think it's going to work for the season. So, all right, guys, I hope you have a great night, and thanks for watching and commenting. Really appreciate it. And thanks especially to DZOM003 for the $5 super chat. Thank you so much, DZOM. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow with Evan Daniel after the Packers Redskins game, or Redskins commanding football team game. So looking forward to that. And then a Friday as well with Tom. So
I'm actually going to go watch with a good friend who's from Wisconsin. Going to watch that game with a couple of friends over at one of the local casinos, one of the local sports books.
Oh, that'll be fun. It's
a nice treat for me during the season.
Yeah.
During Thursday, which is a busy night. Not as busy as past years because I made some changes, but well, of course, I used to do the show last year with Thursday nights, so it made it a little bit more difficult to spend the time going out and watching the games. But now it's a little bit easier.
Yeah. Thanks, License, for saying that. Thank you, everyone. I can't make it equal, by the way, saying minus 135 big on teasers killed it. Yeah, FanDuel and
you should be able to find. Some places still have minus 120, although minus 125 on 6-point teasers has become a little bit more standard. Then you go to minus 130, and some places on 7-point teasers, which I don't recommend, is minus 140 in some places, 130 in others.
Yeah, a bookmaker has minus 120 vig still on those teasers. So if you're looking to bet teasers,
on the 6-pointers,
6-pointers minus 120. Yeah, but
bookmaker that's still good.
Yeah, bookmaker.eu, one of my favorite sports books. So all right, guys. I hope you have a great night. I'll post a short video as well. But we'll be back tomorrow after the game. Good luck to you betting the game. And Andy, thanks once again for coming on.
Pleasure.
We'll have a great night and talk to you tomorrow.